Hi, and welcome to the Best of the Basement, Volume 2. I'm Bob Elliot, and for the past few months, I've been digging through my files, trying to come up with a good bunch of old stories that might make you laugh, and you know, I think I've done it. But first, be warned. The following tape is zany, offbeat, comical, ludicrous, odd, and probably shouldn't be watched driving heavy equipment. Other than that, if it doesn't bother you, then hold on. It's showtime. I thought we'd start things out with a story from Bruce Glazier's Varsity Club. As you know, each week Bruce profiles a different high school scholar athlete. It's a pretty good series. At least it used to be until one April Fool's Day when he profiled Lance Roberts.
South Portland has turned out hundreds of top-notch students over the years, but none better than a lanky young man from the Meeting House Hill area. That's right, I'm talking about Lance Roberts.
Hey, it's Lance.
Hey,
Lance.
What are you guys up to?
Nothing much.
Since 1988, Lance has been one of the stars in the Riot's intramural team handball league. Last year, Lance was a handball reserve, but this year, he's a starter. And the coaches can't say enough about him.
In all honesty, he's proven to be an embarrassment. He's been here for about 6 years. He's losing his hair. He goes out and plays team handball, can't go to his left, can't go to his right. We just can't seem to get rid of him. I don't know what we're going to do.
Lance is no slouch in the classroom either, particularly when it comes to physics. This is the third time he's taken this class, and each year his grade has gone up.
This laboratory experiment is going to be very similar to what you did the other day, and Lance, do you remember how badly that went? You almost got hurt with it. That's the one with the pins. Back there.
Most high school seniors don't know what they want to do when they grow up. Not Lance. He figured that out years ago.
Well, I'm looking for some kind of a job where I can combine, my two real loves, which are physics and team handball. So far, I haven't found it out there anyplace, and that's why I keep coming back to South Portland High School. But like my dad says, jobs, you only need one.
Lance also finds time for extracurricular activities. Just look at this yearbook. Glee Club 1 and 2, Pep Squad 3, Projection Team 4, 5, and 6. One can only wonder how Lance does all this at school and still has time to put in a 40-hour work week at Shaw's. Even got a raise last week. Look at this kid go. For fun, Lance either hangs out at the Deering ice cream shop or goes dancing up at Serenity Hill. Talk about moves. So how does a kid with such limited ability manage to excel? Once again, Lance credits his dad.
Well, my dad told me something a long time ago. It was a saying. It goes like this: it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight. It's not the dog. It doesn't matter if you're a little dog or a small dog. There's this big dog and he's in a fight and he loses. It's the size of the fight. It's not the size of the dog.
Someday, this fine young man hopes to get out of high school and move on to college. South Portland High School is trying to arrange that. So good luck to Lance Roberts, the newest member of Bruce Glazier's Varsity Club.
Lance Roberts, quite a kid. But enough of this high school stuff. Let's move on to the grown-up stories. I became a grown-up several years ago, and it all started with one big change. Well, the big change is that after 41 years, I'm finally getting married. The woman's name is Jennifer, shown here. That's about all I can tell you because she doesn't want to be on TV. But just the same, she's a great lady and we have a great time. There's only one problem. She hates my kitchen. So we're remodeling. The strange thing is, there wasn't anything wrong with it. I mean, nothing was broken. I guess it was the style she objected to. I got to admit, it did have sort of a June Cleaver 1950s sort of look to it. We started with the cabinets. Men don't think much about cabinets. I think women do. These are wood. They used to be brown, and brown is apparently out. White is in. At least it will be in my kitchen from now on. I used to have one of these indoor barbecues. Sure, I had a few cheeseburger fires from time to time, but most of the time it worked great. Used to. It's gone now. And so's this neat carpeting I used to have. Sort of a leopard pattern, hides the dirt and keeps your feet warm in the morning. Now I got wood floors. Nothing like starting out the day with a cup of coffee and a good splinter. And finally, we have the appliances. These used to be sort of an off orange. Now they're black. Black is very, very in these days. I wonder if it keeps beer any colder. Well, there you have it. Pretty soon, I'm going to have a brand new European-style kitchen. Hot dog. I know what you're thinking at this point. Elliot, you've turned into a wimp. Well, it's not really that way. It's more of a compromise. I mean, how many women do you know that would let a guy have a pool table in the living room? Get him. Scratch again. Turns out I got to keep the pool table. I just had to move it down here to the basement, which isn't bad. Either is marriage, for that matter. In fact, I've never felt better in my life. Maybe that's because I've never eaten less. I used to have a regular American diet, you know, cheeseburgers, French fries, and Spam. But then I got married, and the wife said, "Bob, if you keep that up, you're gonna die." That's when I changed my evil ways and started juicing. And look at me now. I know at this point you're probably saying, "Wow, Bob, how can I get into juicing?" Well, it ain't easy. The first thing you gotta do is shell out about $300 for a juicer. Now that may be a lot of money, but it also gets you into the videotaped juicing class.
That'll keep your juicer from prematurely wearing out, you see.
Once you've completed Juicing 101, you begin your study of nutrients, enzymes, and fiber.
This particular drink is magnificent to restructure and reconstitute the cells of the pancreas.
For the final step of this juice preparation, you have to go to the grocery store and stock up on every fruit and vegetable that you can get your hands on. Okay, if you've made it this far, you're ready to start juicing, ready to start cleansing the system. If you're like me and lived through the 60s, I suggest a double dosage. We need a lot of cleansing. After you get some practice at this, you may want to move on to the Advanced Studies course. I'm talking about juice fasting. That's right, no food, just juice. For me, that means juice for breakfast, juice on the job,
I haven't seen it.
juice while I'm working around the house, and of course a nice glass of juice before bed. Now, my wife says the point of all this is to improve your life, prevent disease, and make you feel good. Me, well, so far I haven't really noticed any difference, but they tell me these juices could kick in any minute now. You know, I've interviewed a lot of interesting people in this line of work, everyone from Mick Jagger to Bill Clinton. But I think my favorite encounter was with a 75-year-old bread salesman who just happens to be the last man to hit 400. When I was 8 years old, my only goals in life were to make the All-Star team and meet Ted Williams. Now, in case you're not a baseball fan, Ted Williams was probably the greatest hitter of all time. He retired in 1960, even hit a home run his last time at bat. Nowadays, most people know him as that old guy who sells bread with Bud Levitt. But not me. For me, he'll always be the splendid splinter, the last man to hit 400. Number 9, Ted Williams. Needless to say, when I found out they were making a new bread commercial right here in Portland, I was ecstatic. At last, a chance to finally meet my boyhood idol. Unfortunately, the bread producers weren't wild about having a TV type hanging around. I had to use every cheap trick in the book just to get onto the set. I'm a big fan of Nissin's bread. I've eaten Nissin's bread since I was like this tall. I slowly worked my way behind the scenes and even got to hold one of the reflectors. The commercial was going quite well, but something told me Ted wasn't interested in meeting the media.
They all stink. The writers? Yes, the writers. And some of the radio and television personalities. They stink.
My old pal Bud Levitt finally calmed him down and set up an interview for me. Great, but I was still scared. He's not going to take my head off, is he?
No, hell no. He's an easy touch.
When the clouds rolled in, they stopped filming and Ted Williams finally got off the boat. Showtime at last.
He threw one right there. The guy took it. The guy took it. And then he threw the next one right there, and he fouled that off. Jesus. Nobody can cover appreciably more than his strike or his strong areas and hit consistent. You got too much to cover, and it's all happening too fast. And a couple of tricks might loosen me up. I might say something dirty. You always throw against the damage.
Well, maybe a little hand.
And a little bad in their strength if you're going to throw any place.
All right, I had enough.
But you wouldn't know. You never played the game. You know nothing about it.
Any one memory that really sticks out in baseball for you?
Well, I could name you several, and there were several. Certainly my last home run, I got a touch there. My first home run in the All-Star game, we won the game in the 9th inning. I had a touch there. First time coming back from my service, boom, I hit a home run. Little touch there.
Ted Williams, Bud Levitt, this is Jennifer.
I recognize you
I
too.
don't know how I fooled you. I'll tell you that right now.
Where's your Nissan Buttertop?
We're waiting for a load of them. I like the cinnamon buns the best. The cinnamon buns. Do you ever try them?
No.
So after 30 years, I finally got to meet Ted Williams, and he was everything I built him up to be. Larger than life, bigger than John Wayne. It was like being 8 years old all over again.
Oh, baby!
I was so impressed with Ted Williams that I decided to dig out my old spikes and get back into baseball. Or spaceball, as it were. In 1975, Bill Lee pitched in one of the greatest World Series of all time. For most of the players, it was a career highlight. But for the spaceman, it was just a stepping stone to his current position as player-coach of the New England Gray Sox. The spaceman's got a lot of big names on this squad, but he's also got a problem. You see, Dalton Jones couldn't make the trip, so Lee's been holding tryouts looking for a good utility infielder. Needless to say, the prospects have been coming from everywhere. Me, I came out of the past. 1968, to be exact. That was the year we won the Telegram League Championship, and I've been waiting for my big break ever since. I'm no Robert Redford, I'm no natural, but, I think I could help the club out. I'm not sure how, but
I'll give you a good shot.
okay.
Boy, I like that. You charge everything. I like that. You're like my wife. All right, that's it. Don't slide, don't slide, don't slide, don't slide. There it is. Look at that. We don't care about their hitters. Only protect your own. Oh. Pop, good pop. Here, if I was going to hide from you, though, I'd hide right about here. That's it. No, where you got mustard in your pocket?
Finally, after an exhaustive workout, it was time for the moment of truth. Would this be the beginning of a storybook comeback or the end of a mediocre career? Please, Mr. Spaceman, pick me, pick me.
Hell of a day.
So what do you think?
I think you got the ball club made, son.
Utility ball player?
I think you might even start.
I can.
if the plane goes down.
You ever seen me juggle? I could entertain the crowd.
I like that.
I can do a lot of things.
Wear your hat like that, too, and you'll be Max Papkin. He's the guy they bring out to the ballpark all the time to entertain.
I take a pitch for the team, like, you know, Don Baylor used to. I'll do whatever it takes.
Okay. The contract will be in the mail. Was that the Telegram?
Telegram League.
The Telegram League? Okay.
44 long.
I think
The spaceman's always been a little odd, but that's why I like him. Who wants to be normal? There's no future in it. There's no future down at Al Clayman's bottle shop in the Old Port either, but that doesn't stop him from having fun.
There's a place in Maine where time stands still. It's called the Clayman Bottle Shop. Most of this stuff hasn't been touched in 50 years. That, according to Al Clayman. He ought to know. He's the one who put it here.
This is a tour that I'm giving only you.
This place has 7 floors and about 3 million bottles. And old Al's got a story for every one of them.
Take a look. What does it say on there?
Coca-Cola.
You never saw those, did you? No. People are collectors on
How
that.
old are these?
These are 140 years old. 140 years old. Take a look.
Yeah?
Aren't they beautiful?
Jeez.
They're beautiful.
I remember when I was a kid, it wasn't just Coke and Pepsi. There was these down east beverages. It was everywhere. I loved it when I was a kid.
They went out of business.
Now, I heard stories that people used to take during Prohibition. They take this vanilla.
That's right.
Because it had the alcohol in it.
That's right.
And get a little buzz.
That's right.
Is that true?
That's true.
My father wasn't lying to me?
Absolutely.
Now, about once a week, somebody wants to buy this building and put in an Old Port pub bar bistro. The answer's always the same: no dice. You could sell this building for millions of dollars and move to Florida and play shuffleboard.
That's
Why don't
right.
you sell this building?
Because it's been in the family for years, and we've had hundreds of offers and never be sold.
Will you ever sell it?
No way.
The only problem with this bottle shop is that the bad bar boys keep busting the windows. Al wants police foot patrols. Chief Chitwood doesn't.
He's surprised that there ain't more windows busted a week. Now if that is discrimination, then he's in trouble.
Do you think people are trying to force you out?
Not exactly, but they're getting us out in the hard way, and we won't get out. See what I mean?
Al doesn't do much business these days. He's hardly ever open. And when he is, he'd rather talk about the bottles than sell them.
The circuses used to come to town. It was only plain colored water. And they tell you drank it in carnivals and everything, and they you get cured. See the guy throwing
Cured
the
of
can
what?
away? Of arthritis and everything. See the picture? Take a look.
Now people are going into therapy for
No,
that
but
sort
let
of
them see
thing.
that picture. That's unreal.
It must have cost as much for the bottle as it did for the medicine.
It sure did. It sure did. It sure did. Now, see, this is valuable. There it goes. That's the end of it. No, yeah, that's the end of it.
As you can see, there's a lot of history stacked up in this shop, all of it from the good old days, the days when bottles were bottles and plastic was just a dream. So by all means, stop by the Clayman Bottle Shop and take a trip back in time. Time in a bottle.
That's right. You look here and you'll see stuff you won't believe, Bobby. See? Now, here's the way they used to have you.
You know, every once in a while when I get tired of the hustle and bustle of greater Portland, particularly in the wintertime, I head up to the town of East Sebago in a place called Back Nippin'.
It's pretty quiet in East Sebago this time of year, but that doesn't stop folks from keeping busy. They got a tight schedule up here, and each day has sort of a rhythm to it. They start the day by checking to see if the lake's froze yet. If it ain't, they head down to the general store, then over to the Four Seasons lunch counter, and finally up to a place called Back Nippin', don't you know? Not to be confused with Hog Fat Hill, Mud City, or Mac's Corner. They say if you hurry, you can make the whole loop in about 3 hours. We started at the lake, 9 a.m., no ice, then moved on to Fitch's. That's the general store I was telling you about. What a throwback. Everything you need, just like the place your grandfather used to go to.
I need 2 of them.
Towels, washcloths. We used to have sheets, but nobody seems to use any sheets now.
Lingerie?
I got some bras upstairs.
We We got through at Fitch's by 10. Time for coffee. Time to hit the Four Seasons. So Back Nippon is up there?
Yes. So is Mud City.
Okay.
And Hog Fat.
So I can get to Four Seasons. I can get there from here.
Yes, you can.
The Four Seasons has one of those old-fashioned lunch counters. This is where you can get news, sports, weather, gossip, lies, and find out more about the town. I'm going to come back. The main reason I wanted to come back to East Sebago was to figure out why everybody has a walkie-talkie. And it was, now this is a nice one. I like that one.
You push the button, it gets better.
After an hour or so of coffee, it was time to check out Back Nippon. I'm not sure why people go there. They wouldn't tell me. It's just part of the day when you live in East Sebago. This time of year, it's tough to get through without a snowcat, but you get full credit for just stopping on the road and looking in. Back Nippon. Somehow I thought it would be bigger.
No, it's pretty big. You get up in there, actually.
If you're quick, you can get out of Back Nippon by noon and start the loop all over again. Lake, still no ice, general store, put on another log, and of course there's always the Four Seasons. Hey, how do you get a hamburger around this place? As far as I'm concerned, you can keep your ski weekends. From now on, when I want to unwind, I'm heading up to East Sebago. It doesn't get much better than this. On my way to Back Nippon, I'm Bob Elliot, News Center. While we're on the winter stuff, how about a new twist on an old skiing story? Back in the days when we used real wood, real wax, and we liked it. Do you ever get the feeling that skiing has sort of passed you by? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if there was still some place where you could work on your snowplow without dropping a week's pay? Of course it would, and we're going to take you there, back to the 50s, courtesy of the 6Alive Wayback Machine.
Drive your Chevrolet through the USA.
I'm on my way to the store.
We ended up at a place called Spruce Mountain in Jay. It opened back in the 50s and sort of got stuck there. Right now, as far as we can tell, they got the last rope tow in the state of Maine. There used to be hundreds of rope tows in Maine, places like Hurricane Mountain and Gilmore's Hill. But then skiing went big time. Chairlifts, T-bars, and gondolas. The rope tows just couldn't compete, so they closed down. All of them except Spruce Mountain, that is. The theory here is, hey, it ain't glamorous, but it gets us up the hill. Now, riding a rope tow ain't like just sitting on a chairlift. There's a real art to this sort of thing. What you gotta do is slowly grab the rope, bear down. Skiing has gotten pretty expensive over the years, and a lot of families can't afford to go anymore. That's never been a problem at Spruce Mountain. I mean, check out these prices.
Family membership is $110.
Now that's how many kids?
Well, it doesn't matter. If you've got 2 kids, it's $110. You've got 12 kids, it's $110. We don't discriminate because you got a lot of kids. That's a family membership for the whole year.
This place doesn't make any money. Of course, that's not the point. The point is to have a good time. If you'd like to join them, they'd love to have you. Spruce Mountain, the way Maine used to be. Doesn't get much better than this, does it? Now, I don't always have a good time down here in the basement. In fact, one time a couple of years ago, things got so bad, I almost had to change my name. You know, it's tough being a Bob because people are always messing around with your name. Take me, for example. When I was a kid, they called me Bobby. In college, they called me Bobo. And at NBC, they turned me into a Robert. No, it wasn't until I came back to Portland that they finally let me be Bob Elliot, News Center. I like being a Bob, and I like that new book of Bob, which said that anyone called Bob was the ultimate okay guy. What great Bob news. At last, my identity crisis was over, until that Hurricane Bob blew in.
Hurricane Bob is raging. The storm is packing winds up to heaviest outages.
Someone yesterday said Hurricane Bob is a wimp, and ain't that odd? Well, this certainly is no wimp. That's right. From now on, people are going to associate the name Bob with bad news and destruction. If you think I'm overreacting to all this, go talk to people with names like Oswald, Manson, and John Wilkes Booth. They'll tell you it's called guilt by association. No, nowadays, Bob is just bad.
Hurricane Bob has arrived.
The winds, the rain, so intense that if I step out of this eve that I'm in now and turn to the wind, I can't tolerate it. It just hurts so much.
Yes, Hurricane Bob was so bad, I figured the only hope I had was to change my name and try something else.
In Portland, Ralph Elliot News Center. Ralph Elliot. Hello, I'm Ralph Elliot. Good evening. I'm Ralph Elliot. In Portland, Lance Elliot News Center. Lance Elliot News Center. Good evening. I'm Lance Elliot. In Portland, Andy Elliot News Center. In Cape Elizabeth, Andy Elliot News Center. Paul, Mike.
Unfortunately,
Derek,
nothing seemed to
Sean
work.
Elliott,
I guess I'm
Harold,
just a Bob and always will be a Bob. But why do they keep talking about me?
Hey, Joe, where is Bob now?
Trying to get some peace, that's where I am. But I'll tell you, it ain't easy. Everywhere I go, it's Bob.
Hurricane Bob is raging up. The storm is
The solution? I may be stuck with this name, but that doesn't mean I have to use it. From now on, I'll just be...
In Portland, Elliot News Center.
Hey, wait a minute. You can't do that.
Okay, watch me.
You big baby.
Oh, you try being a Bob for a while. See how you like it. I finally decided to just get out of town and wait for things to blow over. I ended up driving all over the country, even grew a beard. The boss didn't think much of that, so on the first story back, I had to do it from the barber shop.
Well, it isn't Bob Elliot. I give him for dead. I haven't seen you all summer. Where have you been?
Well, I'll tell you, Bob, it's a long, long story.
It's gonna take me at least an hour to clean this mess up. What's going on?
Well, it all started one day last May. There I was, sitting around Congress Square, trying to figure out how I could, put some pizzazz into my life.
And then, all of a sudden, it came to me, Bob. What I needed was to forget about work for a while and go on an adventure. And that's just what I did. I moved out of my house, put everything in storage, and headed out for a cross-country, coast-to-coast tour of America.
Bob, did you take a lot of pictures this summer?
Well, yeah, I didn't really want to see the country through a viewfinder. It'd be too much like work, but I did get some nice postcards.
Oh, that's great.
I started my cross-country camping trip at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Moved on to Niagara Falls on the Canadian border. Spent some time up on Lake Michigan. Did some fly fishing in the Rockies. Won big on the slot machines at Reno, but then blew it all at Lake Tahoe. Finally ended up out on the Northern California coast, at which point I turned around and hit Old Faithful at Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon in Arizona, and then I finished up with the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas, at which point I was out of money, out of clothes, and homesick, so I headed back to Maine. And I don't know, I think I got back to Portland around 4th of July.
Then what you do?
Well, I spent the next 3 weeks perfecting the fine art of rest and relaxation. I'd start out in the morning, Bob, at Riverside, fine-tuning my golf swing. Then I'd head out to one of Portland's beaches for some afternoon rays, and finally complete the day by tuning into the mellifluous and soothing tones of the Boston Red Sox.
Seattle takes a 3-1 lead as we take a 10-second break.
Somebody told me you spent some time up in Alaska, Bob.
Yeah, that's the last part of my vacation. That's where I grew this beard, Alaska. What a place. I'll tell you, Bob, Alaska was simply overpowering, a breathtaking combination of mountains, forests, rivers, streams, and wildlife. I went to Alaska with Jim Meehan, who used to live in Juneau, and news center photographer Steve Phillips. The main part of our adventure was spent up on the Taku River, about 100 miles northeast of nowhere. We saw million-year-old glaciers, unexplored wilderness, and fish that practically jumped into our boat. Cutthroat trout, anyone?
Alaska was far and away the highlight of my summer, except for the part when Steve and I got thrown out of the Red Dog Saloon, but that's another story. To sum it all up, they say that once you've been to Alaska, you'll never again be quite the same. They're right. And that, my friend, is how I spent my summer vacation.
Well, it's good to have your bag, Bob. What other kind of stories are you going to be doing this year?
I don't know, but I'll think of something. Thanks for the trim, my friend. I'll see you around. It wasn't long before I got in big trouble all over again. It started when I paid a hitman to club me in the knee and then did a bunch of phony stories about it. I really had people going for a while there, but then the media got involved. News Center's Susan Kimball led the charge.
Last week, News Center's Bob Elliot was assaulted, clubbed in the knee while salting his driveway. At least that's what we thought, until a number of viewers called to point out the similarities between Bob's attack and the one on skater Nancy Kerrigan. Needless to say, they weren't amused.
Now, Bob Elliot doesn't get a lot of hate mail, but this skating joke of his has generated quite a few angry letters. One viewer writes, "Your Nancy Kerrigan imitation was terrific. Too bad the hitman didn't take the bat to your head." Signed, a former fan.
At first, Bob denied these allegations.
Bob, there's speculation now that this whole thing might have been a setup. Do you have any comment about that?
No comment. Don't you folks have like some storms you can cover or something? Some snowstorms? I got nothing to say about it.
No comment about this at all?
Nothing. Leave me alone.
We wanted to leave him alone, but the evidence wouldn't let us. First, an incriminating notebook turned up. Then, the hitman turned himself in.
How did this whole thing get started?
Well, it's simple. Elliot offered to pay me $15.
$15, though. You know, Bob is a friend of yours, was a friend of yours. Why squeal on him?
Well, Current Affair came forward with 10 grand.
That did it. Early this morning, Bob Elliot stopped ducking us and finally agreed to talk.
Bob, you know, the thing that puzzles me about this is you had such a great career going. Why do a cheap stunt like this?
I don't know. I guess it was just ratings. You know, it's February sweeps. There's a lot of pressure on us to come up with good stories, get viewers in. We haven't had a 50 share at this station since the wagon train days. That's important. And I don't know, I just thought it was funny. I thought it was a funny bit that people would be tired of hearing about this Kerrigan-Tonya Harding episode. And so I decided to poke a little fun at it. I guess I was wrong. And I may pay, you know. I could lose my job over this.
Officials at 6Alive have been in and out of meetings all day trying to figure out what to do with Bob Elliot. Should he be suspended or should he continue to compete in the all-important February ratings period? The ruling is expected early next week. We'll keep you posted. In Portland, Susan Kimball, News Center.
The station finally brought me back, but then put me on double secret probation. That's when I started thinking about a new career, maybe a career in the movies.
Yes, folks, Mel Gibson shooting a movie on the Portland waterfront. It's called The Man Without a Face. It takes place on the coast of Maine in 1968. And for weeks now, the production types have been rounding up old clothes, old cars, and anybody who knows anything about 1968. Everyone except me, that is, and I graduated in 1968. Surely there must be a role for me somewhere. Hello? Who do you talk to around here, anyway?
My name is Bob Elliot, Channel 6. I graduated in 1968. I know everything there is to know about the 60s. Can I be an extra? Do you know? Could you talk to somebody for me? I know it's a little late in the production, but just like some small anything you got.
Knock on that door right there.
Hello, production?
Hi there.
How you doing?
Good enough.
My name is Bob Elliot. I still dress like this, you know? Converse sneakers, blue jeans.
Just like a reporter.
I know, but this is the way it's
I'll
sort
let
of.
you mind for now.
Okay, and Mike is his name? Yeah. I'm ready. I mean, just a small part, anything, you know? Singing parts, dancing parts, anything from the 60s. I know all the songs. See me loving nobody but you for all my life.
I was getting nowhere fast with these behind-the-scenes people, so I went right to the top. Mel Gibson himself.
Mel, can I be an extra? What's this, the 6 o'clock news? Bob's Basement!
Oh, what's the use? He's never heard of me. He doesn't know I belong back in 1968. Sure, I'm not 18 anymore and I can't go to my left, but I could still do the job. Mel, please, give me a call.
With me, baby, the skies will be...
2 days later, I got the big call. Mel said I could be an extra in a crowd scene and maybe even something bigger.
So do you have anything for Bob Elliot? Bob Elliot. 44 long. Ooh, lovely. Did we really wear this stuff back then?
Is it Mel or is it Mr. Elliot?
Rugged guy. Looks like a glamorous job. I think it's more like being in the army. I feel like I'm waiting for my shots or something. Sideburns are coming back, you know. By the time this movie comes out, he'll be right in fashion. Rugged guy. And how long is the scene we're in is going to be how long? Like 2 minutes. 2 minutes or something like that? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're about ready to start shooting, but there's one problem. It's a closed set, and there are no cameras. That means no cameras. He can't go inside there, can he?
No, he can't.
Absolutely closed set. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be doing too much of the directing. Where is he? They tell me I'm going to be able to see Mel Gibson in about probably 15 or 20 minutes. It's sort of an exclusive interview with him, and at that point, I'm hoping to give him the big push for the big part. They're still looking for some, major roles coming in here.
Mel never got back to me about that big part. First, I was a little upset, but then a year later, when I finally saw myself on the silver screen, all I could say was, thanks, Mel, for making me a star.
Here, back row, look. Right, see up there, back row? Right there? Top one on the left. The one jumping up and down, that's me. There I am.
No basement show would be complete without at least a couple of car stories. No, I'm not talking about this triumph. It's much sadder than that. It's about the end of an era. The end of a Cadillac.
There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just spit it out. The Cadillac is dead. After 16 years, it finally just fell apart. Funny, I never thought it would be so tough to say goodbye to a car. We had some great times together, some great memories.
Put Bob Elliot in the...
I remember the Cadillac had a very prominent role in my battle against George Mitchell back in '88. We might have won that race if I hadn't run out of gas money.
I need your vote. I only have $200.
Then there was the time we went all the way from Kittery to Camden in search of the perfect lawn ornaments. We ended up with a whole trunk load of the things. Unfortunately, the town of Cape Elizabeth wouldn't let me put them up. They didn't like the idea of lawn ornaments. Come to think of it, they didn't think much of that Bob's Angels segment that I used to run either.
You want to tell me who those three were?
I don't know. They just came with a car. It hasn't been all fun and games with a Cadillac. It used to break down quite a bit. Mike Sharon was my head mechanic. His prognosis usually went something like this.
It's kind of like pay me now or pay me later. And later is now.
It may have cost me a fortune, but I always got the Caddy back on the road. You see, I loved that car. Maybe that's why my wife hated it so much.
Look at this rust. Can you believe this? One of these days we're going to slam on the brakes and the body is going to fly right off the chassis. I can't believe this car. Look at this. I hate this car.
Well, honey, fear no more. The Caddy's gone. No more picnics on the waterfront. No more Elliot Spade. And no more of that Halloween ghost-busting business. I had hoped the Caddy might make it for one more road trip. One more spring training. One more trip to Perry's Nut House. I guess it just wasn't in the cards. So anyway, here I am, left with an old car, some memories, and a future that looks pretty bleak. I mean, where will I go? What will I do? I know they say time heals all wounds, except with rust, and it just makes that worse.
It was tough to lose a good gas guzzler like that, but you gotta move on in this world, and I moved on to a whole new world. Yeehaw!
Ever since my caddy died, I've been looking for a new car. Not just any car, but something that makes a statement. Now, there's plenty of good stuff out there, but I just haven't been able to make a commitment. I mean, getting a new car is like getting married. You gotta get along or it just doesn't work. Fine, but what works for me? The car dealers say, that's simple.
Bob, the snow's coming. It's in the air. Can't you feel it? It'll be here soon. You need four-wheel drive.
Well, I took the advice and finally cut a deal on this 1988 Ford Bronco 2. And why a Bronco? Well, I don't really know. I think it was because of this spare tire on the back. You know, it sort of moves back and forth like this, says Bronco on it. Pretty neat, huh? Now, I've never needed four-wheel drive before, but I guess I do now. They say it'll get me through all those pesky 3-inch snowstorms and make me real popular during emergencies. You know, times when you have to boil some water and bring in the four-wheel drive.
Storm Center is brought to you by Star Mountain Motors. No one outshines the...
They say strange things happen when you get four-wheel drive. They say your life starts to look like a commercial. And the next thing you know, you're out sloshing in the mud and driving through the lakes. And me? Well, I've already started to notice a change. That's right, I've turned into Bronco Bob. It's a hard thing to explain. 1 minute I'll be on the road, and the next thing I know, I'm out driving around in a field someplace. Very odd. And that's not all. I've picked up a couple of new bad habits. I spend a lot of time doing that Bronco bonding thing, and I even find myself hanging around down at the rodeo.
This is my car, Bronco. Well, Bronco 2, actually.
He drives a Bronco. He's a cowboy at heart.
So anyway, the Cadillac may be dead, but I don't care anymore, because I've got a whole new world waiting for me. The world of Bronco Bob.
At the end of my ride. Ride him in, hit him out, ride him in, hit him out. Hot dog, Uncle Jed. Whee! Ride him in raw high.
And finally, I thought I'd leave you with a story about Mary Murphy. Now, Mary was one of our high school interns here at the station. Nice kid, energetic, upbeat, until one day she just fell apart. That's when I stepped in.
It's a magical night filled with limos, tuxedos, and gowns. No, you never forget your prom, unless you don't go. Mary Murphy can't go, and she's heartbroken. You see, her boyfriend Joel is in the middle of final exams down in Connecticut and can't make it home. What a shame. Isn't there someone out there who could take his place?
Somebody stop me!
Sorry, too late. We're off to the prom. I figured I could help Mary out and get a good story all at the same time. As in, what happens at the prom these days anyway?
Aaron, this is my date, Bob.
How you doing? Where are you from?
South Portland.
South Portland, huh?
Nowadays, you don't start at the prom, you start at the pre-prom, sort of a party where you do the corsage thing and the parents take a lot of pictures. Speaking of parents, I don't think Mary's dad liked me very much.
Now, son, this is my only daughter, Mary. She's a lovely girl. I expect you home by 11, and if you touch her, you're dead.
And with those words of encouragement, we headed for town. Not to the prom, but to dinner, Street and Company. This is getting expensive.
So anyway, who do you have for homeroom?
After dinner, it was time for the main event, the prom. In the old days, you got there in your old man Chevy. No more, now you need a limo. We picked a Flo Hutchins 30-footer and headed for the Mariners Church Dance Hall.
Hey, it's prom night.
This was where I started to get a little nervous. You see, I don't know any of the new dances.
No twist anymore, or any
No.
boogaloo, hully-gully.
I think we might see some split dresses if we try to do a twist, you know.
Fortunately, the dancing hasn't changed much, except now they have DJs instead of bands, and the cool kids wear sunglasses. I wasn't cool, but I did teach them a few of the old steps.
Do the swim. Now the backstroke.
Kids don't really dance together anymore. They dance with everyone. I mean, I took one little break and my date hooked up with some punk from Falmouth.
Hey, kid, come on, get out of here.
You know, it's sort of funny. Grown-ups do all kinds of things these days to stay young. Exercise, makeup, even plastic surgery. Maybe the answer's simpler than that. Maybe we all ought to just go to more proms. I know that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay, big shot, the party's over. You're out of here. You're coming home with me.
But honey, what about the post-prom party? I mean,
What are the laws?
come on. I mean, everybody's gonna be there.
You promised to love, honor, and obey.
I'm still in the doghouse over this one, but what can you do? That's life. That's also the end of this tape. I hope you liked it. Maybe I'll see you next time on the Best of the Basement 3. So long.